Hello students, today we are going to discuss the topic religion and belief system in ancient Assam from the paper History of Assam up to circa 1228 of the fifth semester. Moving on to the topic, we should understand that before the popularity of the Brahmanical religion, which is associated with the entry of the Aryans into early Assam from the 5th century onwards, the land of Assam was home to numerous tribal population having their own set of religious beliefs and practices. Some of these common features of the religious practices of this primitive people can be associated with the prevalence of the fertility cult, ancestor worship, animism, as well as animal and human sacrifices. The megaliths which have been found in early Assam offers us a glimpse into the primitive religious beliefs and practices of the region. There are a lot of megalithic remains in the state of Meghalaya in places like Chera, Juwai, Nartiang, and others. We find that at the site of Lightlingkot, by the side of a menhir, a dolmen has been found containing bones of the dead. And this signifies some sort of ancestor worship which was popular in those days. At the same time, the megalithic remains also have a striking resemblance to the male and the female generative organs, suggesting a close relationship between ancestor worship and fertility cult. Now, ancestor worship was based on the belief that the spirit of the dead ancestors will look after the family of the living and protect it from any unseen harm. The fertility worship was supposed to bring forth more children, prosperity, and also a rich harvest for the people who were mostly agriculturist in nature. Thus, sacrifices have also become a part and parcel of these rituals. In the North Kachar area, particularly presently in Dima Hasao, the areas of Bolasan, Derebora, Kobak, and others have hundreds of stone jars, and these were said to contain the ashes of the dead, suggesting ancestor worship. Again, in the capital of ancient Kachari kingdom, Dimapur, some stone columns have been found which are of considerable significance. They can be found to be of three varieties: the chessman type, the Y-shaped type, and the buffalo horn type columns, which are with carvings on them. These megaliths are also supposed to be associated with the fertility cult for yielding prosperity to the people. The chessman column has a striking similarity with the phallic shape, and the Y-shaped and the buffalo horn type column seems to present the female reproductive organ. The buffalo horn type also appears to be a decapitation pose for ceremonial sacrifices. Thus, it is quite probable that the Hindu Shiva Shakti rituals in Assam had their foundation in the primitive practices of the tribal people inhabiting the region, which shows the assimilation of these religious cults and beliefs into Hinduism, which came at a later period, particularly from the 5th century onwards. We have already seen that ancient Assam came into contact with the Vedic culture from a very early period. The Aitreya Brahmana and the Satapatha Brahmana provides evidence of the migration of the Aryan people to the east of the Karatoya River, that is, their entry into early Assam. Even the Buddhist sources have reference to a Lohita Brahmana, indicating unquestionable presence of the Brahminical cult in the Brahmaputra Valley as early as in the days of the Buddha. Even the use of Sanskrit language in the Nagajari Khanikar stone inscription of the early 5th century AD, and also the mention in the Borgonga rock inscription of the time of Bhurti Burman about the establishment of an ashrama by Avaguna, as well as the performance of Ashwamedha sacrifice, proves the growing popularity and firm footing of the Brahmanical culture in early Assam. We find that assimilation of cults took place, which gave rise to special cults and sectarian rites and beliefs. One of the most widespread cult in early Assam was the worship of Shiva. Shiva was a very popular deity who was worshipped both by the aborigines as well as by the ruling dynasties of the region. We find literary evidences in the Kalika Purana, the Yogini Tantra, as well as in the Harsha Karita, which speaks of the popularity of the worship of Shiva. The Kalika Purana records that before the establishment of an Aryan colony, ancient Kamrupa was inhabited by the people of the Miratha tribe, and the whole land was the domain of Shambhu. Again, we also find that in the Yogini Tantra, in the Yogini Pitha, the religion has originated from the Kiratas. So we find that already the non-Aryan people Shiva worship as a cult was largely prevalent. Even we find King Naraka's friend, King Bana of Sonitpur, was decidedly a non-Aryan, and he has also been described a devotee of Shiva. Thus, among the non-Aryan population, particularly, the worship of Shiva was very, very popular. In the Harchakarita, in the days of Bhaskar Burman of the Burman dynasty, we find that the ruler was decidedly a devotee of Shiva. Because, according to the literature, we find that from his very boyhood, he took a firm resolve not to pay any homage to anybody except the lotus feet of Shiva. We also have inscriptional evidences right from the time of Bhaskar Burman to the Pala rulers, which indicate that Shiva worship was very popular. The inscription, later than those of Bhaskar Burman, also contains convincing references to the uninterrupted prevalence of the worship of Shiva. We have the Tezpur Granth of Vanamala Deva, which records that the king, out of devotion, got the tall and towering temple of Hitikasulin rebuilt. In the Tezpur and Parvatiya Granths of Vanamala, even a hill called Kamakutagiri is said to have been presided over by Sri Kameshwara and Mahagori. That Kameshwara means Shiva is corroborated by its reference found in the Kalika Puran. Even the grants of the later dynasty ruler, that is the Pala dynasty, we find that in all the grants of Ratnapala, the Mangala verse is meant for paying homage to Lord Shiva. In the grants of Indrapala too, the Mangala verse is in the name of Shiva. Even in the Gospel copperplate grant of Gopala, the Mangala verse is addressed to Lord Shiva. So we find that most of the rulers of the ruling dynasties were devotees of Shiva. Apart from the inscriptional evidences, we have a large number of temple remains which are scattered across different parts of Assam, which proves that the worship of Shiva was very, very popular. Mostly, the Linga form of Shiva was worshipped in early Assam, although the iconic forms of Shiva, that is, the images of Shiva and also the other deities who are associated with the Shaivite cult were also found in Assam. So this shows that Shiva was one of the most important deity who was worshipped by the people of this region. We have already seen that ancient Assam came into contact with the Vedic culture from a very early period. Apart from the worship of Shiva, Shaktism as a cult was also very popular in ancient Assam. Shaktism means the cult of worshipping a female goddess who is known variously by the names of Devi, Durga, Kali, Uma, Kamaikha, Tara, Chandi, and so on. They are nothing but imply the diverse manifestations or aspects of the same goddess. The goddess is worshipped in various iconic representations or in the form of a yoni, symbolizing the creative principle. Traditionally, Kamrup has been recognized as the principal center of Sakta cult with its chief temple at Kamaikha. Apart from the temple of Kamaikha, we have other temples dedicated to the Devi, like the temple of Chandika, the temple of Ugratara, the Tamureshwari temple or the temple of Dikaravasini at Sadia, the Devi temple at Silgha, the Devi temple at Vishwanath, and others, which proves that the Devi was also popularly worshipped and revered by the people of this region. Apart from this temple remains, we also find references, basically literary references in the Kalika Purana and Yogini Tantra, which deals with the worship of this deity. Through the ages, Kamakya has remained the most celebrated center of the Sakta cult in Assam, and the Kalika Purana, which has been composed in ancient Kamrupa, was specifically for the purpose of glorifying goddess Kamakya. As related in the Kalika Purana, the genital organ of the Devi said to have fallen at Kamakya when her dead body was carried frantically by Lord Shiva, and the hill where Kamakya is situated represented the body of Shiva himself. The hill is said to have turned blue as the genital organ fell uh, in the hill. And because of this, the hill came to be known as the Nilachala or the Blue Hill. We find that in the temple of Kamakya, the deity is not represented by any icon, but by the phallic representation of the yoni. We find that Kamakya was the object of worship of some of the primitive tribes, which has later been given a place of honor in the Aryan pantheon. This becomes extremely clear when in the Kalika Purana itself we find that it has been recorded that the goddess Kamakya was already there in Kamrupa even before the time of the even during the time of the Kiratas and immediately before Naraka started to reside there. This shows that Kamakya was originally a tribal mother goddess who came to be assimilated into Hinduism. In the Kalika Purana, we also have references to and descriptions of many other seats of Devi worship. So, to wrap up today's session, we can conclude by saying that Assam was a land to numerous tribes inhabiting the region who had their own religious beliefs and practice system. These people were associated with the fertility cult, ancestor worship, and sacrifices, which formed an integral part of the belief system of this people. However, with the coming of Hinduism from the 5th century onwards, new religious cults also came to be popular in the region. Shiva was one of the most popular deity, and we can see that Shiva was actually a non-Aryan god who was later on adopted into the Hindu pantheon. Assam being a land mostly populated by the non-Aryan people, Shiva worship was very, very popular. And we can see that almost in all the inscriptions, the rulers invoke salutation to the feet of Shiva. Apart from the inscriptions, there are also literary as well as numerous temple ruins and sculptures which prove the popularity of Shiva as well as the deities associated with Shiva in the region. Apart from Shiva, we find that Shakti worship was also very popular. In fact, Kamrupa can be said to be one of the important places of Shakti worship, as has been described in the Kalika Purana. We find that the cult of Shiva Shakti can be found, and that is examples of it can be found or evidences of it can be found in the numerous temple and sculptural remains of the region. The Kalika Purana, the Yogini Tantra have lots of chapters dedicated to worshipping this deity. There are also other um, cults in Hinduism who were very very popular, which were very very popular in early Assam. But this shall be discussed in the next part of the same topic. So I suggest the student should also go to the next part where we will be discussing about the other cults which were also very popular along with Buddhism, which also became one of the popular cults in the region. Thank you.